In a passionate encyclical released today, Pope Francis pointedly criticized capitalism, consumerism, technology, and politicians for causing, contributing to, or at least acquiescing in the degradation of the planet. Wading deeply into a contentious political debate, he said humans are largely the cause of global climate change and that the developed North owes an ecological debt to the planet's poorer South. Here to discuss the Pope's message and how it could affect the global economy and investing are Father Matt Malone, editor-in-chief of the faith-based magazine America, that is published by the Jesuits of the United States, and Jim Toey, president of Ave Maria University. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you here with us. Father Malone, let me ask you, does the Pope dislike, is he anti-capitalist, or is he misunderstanding it somehow?
No, I think that he has leveled a very serious critique against the ways in which capitalism is lived out across the globe today. But the Church doesn't have an ideological commitment to a specific economic system. In fact, this Pope is distrustful of ideology in all of its forms. He seems to be simply pointing out that there are injustices in the world that are as serious as they are obvious. And that we need to address them. And whatever system best accounts for that is the solution that we ought to pursue.
Mr. Toey, how do you feel about that? Is the Pope against capitalism, or is Father Malone says really just offering a critique of it and politicians?
Well, I think the Holy Father brought to bear on this encyclical his life journey. He lived in Buenos Aires. He lived near the poor. He saw the strains on drinking water, on safe food, the globalization of indifference he's been talking about since he became Pope. So I think he was bringing to bear on this discussion not only his perspective, but a continuation of church teaching about capitalism without a conscience. I don't think he came out with some indictment of capitalism per se. I think he was simply bringing to the public square the discussion of the moral dimension to the issues involving the environment.
The issues involving the environment are something that you will be paying close attention to, I am sure, as a university looking at investments over the future. And I'm wondering if now with the Church's teachings perhaps taking a different turn, will that change at all the way that Catholic universities are investing?
I think it very well may. Ave Maria University has always had a so-called Catholic filter on its investment policy, which means we don't invest funds in our millions of dollars in endowment. We don't invest them in organizations that are actively promoting abortion or doing embryonic stem cell research and so forth. So that limits the pharmaceuticals and other businesses that you're going to invest with. So the Ave Maria University approach has always had a Catholic filter. I think what's going to happen now is that trustees of Catholic organizations will be meeting to discuss how can you be faithfully Catholic in light of what the Holy Father has just written, and what about these transnational corporations that he talked about that he has concerns with. I think it's going to begin what he wanted, which is an honest debate and dialogue.
Father Malone, how do you think the encyclical might change global business, particularly companies that are involved in the use, heavy use or mining of fossil fuels? And how do you think it will change the political conversation? He's coming to America. He's going to talk to the United Nations. He's going to talk to Congress.
Well, one of the things that it might change, as we just talked about, is the policies of our colleges, universities with regard to investments. And I agree that I think that trustees of our universities who are already examining that issue are probably going to look at it anew and with a much more serious gaze. I would also say that the pressure will come from the bottom up as well, because this Pope, I think, is very popular with millennials and with students today. And there's a way in which this encyclical was really geared toward them. On the larger question of how it affects business writ large, I think the folks who have been slow to see this issue as a big issue have been opposed until now to policymakers and politicians who see it as absolutely crucial. They now stand in opposition to the Pope, and I don't think that is a place where anyone wants to be at this moment, given that he is the most credible person on the planet.
So let me ask you then sort of a follow-up question, Father Malone. If I were a Catholic who has questioned over time how much humans were responsible for climate change, do you think this will change one person's view on that? In other words, if I were of the mind that climate change either does not exist or was not attributable largely to the actions of human beings, and I am a Catholic, the Pope has now said, I'm wrong.
I don't think that's quite what he said. You know, if you read the document pretty closely, you'll see that he's not making scientific claims. He's simply stating the fact that the consensus in the scientific community says that human beings are responsible in some measure, perhaps in large measure, for what is happening to this planet.
But he's embracing that point of view.
Yes, he is. He's acknowledging that that is, in fact, the scientific consensus, which it is. And, you know, I think he takes very seriously the consensus of the scientists and feels that we have an obligation and a duty to respond. In fact, the U.S. Catholic bishops said that this morning. But what claim this document makes on the conscience of an individual Catholic will depend, first of all, on how that Catholic receives this. But it's also important to point out that the further we get away from the central truths of Christian revelation, the less authority to bind a particular pronouncement has.
Jim, let me ask you the question about what impact this could have on the business community. You've talked about the impact that it will have perhaps on colleges and universities, but what about businesses and those that have significant investments and make their money from investing in fossil fuels?
Well, I think they're obviously going to be aware of what the Holy Father has put out today. I think there's going to be a discussion. It'll continue in September when he comes to America and has the pulpit, so to speak. I think businesses are always aware of the pressures they face from shareholders to drive money to the bottom line. And a lot of times in doing that, and this is what the Pope wrote about, that can lead to adverse consequences for the world's poor. So there's going to be a new realization that there's not only a focus on profits, but also there's a matter of conscience that's going to be now elevated, I think, with what the Holy Father said today and what people are going to say behind him. But this is still a little bit of a political football on the question of global warming. And even with our students at Ave Maria University, they're going to be wanting to study this 184-page document. There's a lot of beautiful theology, but there's also a lot that calls all of us with wealth to question on how we spend it.
Fascinating conversation, gentlemen. Tim Tohey of Ave Maria and Father Matt Malone of America Media. I appreciate it. The intersection of faith and economy right there today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.